Okay.
Okay, well, to start off with, I was born November the 8th, 1938, so I'm going to be 87 years old here in about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, I was born in a house down there where the Sonic sits today.
Okay.
My folks bought the 3 lots down there, and they didn't have a house on it, but there was a house across the highway in front of what's Glen Sains now. And somehow or other, they never did tell me, but somehow or another, they got that house moved across that highway, over a ditch, and up on the north end of that lot. And that's where that's where we lived, where I was born. Like I said, I was born November the 8th, 1938. I was the third boy, and I think Mama wanted a girl when she had me because I never got a haircut until I got ready to go to school.
Really?
And I started out, they just called me the baby. Well, after a while, my mama told me that after sometime in the 1939, the summer of 1939, my dad was a mechanic, had a shop on the other side of Leland Blackshare's house. He came home one day for dinner and he said, Lucille, my mother's name was Lucille. He said, Lucille, if you don't name that baby today, I'm going to call him Wylie. Well, that's what happened, but by that time it was too late because calling me the baby had gotten shortened down to just babe. All my relatives, all of my friends, all our neighbors, everybody that knew Mama had a baby, its name was Babe, and that's what I was called up until I started school.
So it didn't follow you on though at
Yeah,
your.
and today, if I had any relatives left, they'd still be calling me that. Uh, but if he'd left me alone, I would have just I'd have named myself Roy Rogers or Gene Autry or something. I was like everybody out my age. We just loved Ford Theater
Uh-huh.
Saturday. So, but anyway, that's how I got started, and
So,
growing
so
up there.
so tell me about the Ford Theater. Let's just go ahead and
Okay,
jump up to the Ford
the
Theater.
Ford. I can tell you about the Palace Theater too. Do you remember it?
It's hard to find any information on the Palace
Okay, I
Theater.
know the Palace Theater was just this side of the old hotel. They just tore the building down not long ago.
Right.
It's open, and a man named Everett Fry he owned that Palace Theater, and he showed more of the second-rate Western movies and stuff on Saturday. And Tom Ford, he had the number one first-rate Roy Rogers, Gene Autry movies, and we'd go up there to, and there was another little guy. I don't know if you knew him or not, Cecil
McGinnis.
McGinnis.
I do remember him.
He he wasn't quite all there, I don't think. But let me tell you something. When we went in Ford Theater on Saturday, he got his drink and his popcorn, and he was down on the first row. And he was an older guy, and he had a bigger time than we did watching them Cowboys.
I remember he walked around town. I
He
remember.
mowed yards around
Mhm.
Rector.
Yeah.
Um, Now then, I have to tell a story on myself. I hold a record being the only person that was ever locked in Ford Theater.
Go to sleep.
On a Sunday night, I think it was, they used to show they'd show a movie at 7, and at 9 they'd start it all over again. And I was there at the first movie, 7 o'clock, and I watched it, and I was thinking about going home, but my brother and some of his friends come in, and I thought, well, I'll just wait around and I'll walk home with him because it's kind of spooky walking at night. Well, I went back up about middle ways of the theater on the left side of the aisle and up against the wall, and I sat down waiting for the movie to be over so I could walk home with him. Went to sleep. Woke up about midnight. It was black. Everybody was gone. I don't know how they missed me sitting there in that chair. But there I sat. I remembered I couldn't get out the front doors. I didn't know nothing about that. So I could remember that some of the old boys used to pull a trick on Tom Ford. The back door would open from the inside out. You could go around the stage and down the hallway there and go out the back door. Well, they'd one of them would go in and they'd pay to get in the theater. And once the movie started, whatever, he'd go back to the back and open the door and let a whole bunch of boys in free of charge. So I knew I could get out that way. So out that door I went. And I probably ran all the way home.
Well, and they didn't miss you. Did they know that you were there?
No, nobody
Oh.
ever knew that because Billy Joe Ford, Tom's son, he would walk the aisles, and make sure everything, they didn't clean up nothing until the next day. But he didn't see me leaning up against the wall over there in that chair.
Wow.
But
And you
anyway,
were how old?
I hold the record for being the only one ever locked in that theater. But
Wow.
boy, I can tell you, I guess coming up across the railroad track, a lot of people don't realize what that little brick building is down there on the Main and 7th Street. That was the old jail.
Right.
And of course, Ford's dealership across the highway. And on the vacant lot across from them, Clayton Hardin had a cotton gin,
Mm-hmm.
which was torn down years ago.
Yeah.
We used to play in the cotton holes out there.
Yeah.
But just on the other side of that old jail was a big 2-story white house. People called it the Sexton House. But what it was the section house. The railroad built that to house their railroad employees when they worked on the railroads. They had a place to stay. And some people got in that and lived there after that was over with.
Now, did the Nelsons live in that house?
Pardon?
Nelsons?
Yeah, Murray
Yeah.
Nelson.
Yeah.
And he married, his wife was married to a baker to start with. Billy Baker was her son, and Joyce June was their daughter.
Joyce June Baker, yeah.
And that's where they lived. And on down the end of the down corner of the North Main or South Main and the highway there is where Jesse French had his big service station. You probably remember that.
I remember that, yeah.
And across the road is where Square Shooter Wright had the junkyard.
Right.
And he also had the little Hobnob drive-in on the other side of the highway.
That was his?
Yep, that was his. Next door to that was Ed Clifford, had a grocery store. And Ed and his son, they had a pretty good sized van truck, and he serviced all the outlying stores like in Leonard, Mounds. That's
Wow.
how they got their groceries. And boy, I shopped a lot from Mr. Clifford's store.
So is his store, is that where they used to have the ambulance service was?
No, the ambulance service was around the corner there on
Okay.
where the Hobnob Drive-In was at. And of
Yeah.
course, you well remember next to the grocery store there, the A&W Drive-In.
So the grocery store was where the pizza place is now.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah,
the
okay.
pizza place was.
Okay.
Billy Burt Brackens ran that
Yeah,
for a grocery store for a
In
while.
my time, it was Billy Burt Bracken. Yeah.
Now, on the other side of the highway there, Billy Burt's mother was Ethel Milburn, and her husband had a house there, and they had a shop thing on the end of it, and they bottled sodas, orange, grape sodas. But that apparently didn't last long because they went out of business. But
I have read, and as a matter of fact, I'm trying to find it right now, that for a little while they bottled grape-et
yeah,
sodas here.
yeah,
Was that them, you think?
that was where
Okay, okay.
they made. Like I said, they had grape sodas and orange sodas and
Hmm.
lemon. They didn't have any of the like Pepsi or Dr. Pepper or nothing
Right,
like that.
right.
But coming on up that road, of course, Sherlin Hamilton is running the oil business now in the old Ford
Hmm.
dealership. Across the railroad track was Brewer's Lumber Shed.
I remember.
You very well remember that probably.
I do.
On the other side, the gas station where the ice cream parlor is now and this coffee place was my sister's husband, Vinny, and Kurt Fritz. Kurt ran that as a service station back in the
Mhm.
40s and 50s. And
You know,
now then,
I've done a little history on that building, and there's been somewhere around 15 different businesses in that building.
now then, we have the nicest little park, and a lot of people don't realize what that building was in the middle of that park. There were some older people around Rector that played music. And down there on North Main Street, up in one of the upstairs buildings, they had a meeting place up there. But they would have concerts out there in that little park.
Yeah, the Rector City Band.
Yep.
Hmm.
Now, and I can tell you another story. Back in the 50s, the dealers in town would all donate a little money, and I think they gathered up around $500. And on Saturday, they'd have a drawing out there. Well, a close friend of mine, Harold Shelton, his folks lived down on 13th Street, the last big yellow house down on 13th Street. He would get up in the morning and drive to town, and he would park there by that first parking place where the steps go down in the park. He'd walk back home. Afternoon, him and his wife would walk back to town. They needed that car there, have a place to sit down and rest. But that's how I remember them. Me and Harold Shelton ran together a lot.
You know,
And
they've just torn that house down like last week,
they
the
just tore that,
report. So,
and they tore another one down there next to it. It didn't
mhm,
look like a real bad house,
mhm,
but they
yeah,
tore it down too.
right.
They might be trying to. That used to be kind of the armpit of Rector, the south end.
Hmm.
There was some older houses, and that old ditch ran down through there until they covered it up. But now now we've left Brewers, come across the street. The first building there where Jimmy Graves had his offices when I was growing up was a frozen food locker because
And the name of it was.
I that I can't recall for sure, but I just knew it was a frozen food locker.
It seems to me like it was Woods.
It could very well have been.
That doesn't ring a bell with you though.
No, but
Yeah,
back in those days, the 40s and 50s, people didn't have freezers at home,
right.
and a lot of them didn't have none. Grandmother, she didn't have an electric refrigerator. She lived out on 7th and Phillip Street on the corner, just across the street from Tom Green's house, the ex-marshal that got killed.
Hmm.
But they had a little card so big, and they had 25, 50, 75, and 100. You hang it out on a nail out on your porch. If you wanted 25 pound of ice, you had that up at the top.
It's on the top. Yeah.
And
Uh, they have one of those in the Johnny Cash Boyhood Home that dies in the window there,
yeah,
and most people don't know what it is, but it's
and I still remember uh, the ice plant.
yeah.
You could go in and get you a big old chunk of ice or chopped ice, whatever you wanted. across the way there was they also had the feed mill.
Mhm.
They had a grinder in there that you could take corn in, and they grind it up and made cornmeal right there in that building. Or you could get cattle feed.
Mhm.
My grandma always had a cow, so I would I'd go up there and get her a big toast. We called them tow sacks full of cow feed. And when she got it empty, I'd take it back and get a nickel out of that bag.
That's like
gotta make
deposit.
gotta make money however you could for Mr. Ford. Well, once you got past the frozen food locker, of course, Mr. Cruz had the Western Auto,
Mhm.
and he sold a little bit of everything in there. Some pretty bicycles that I never could afford.
I got one for Christmas from there one time. My
My
sister and I
oldest
both,
brother,
yeah.
Bob, he was 10 years older than me, and somewhere along around the seventh grade, he kind of flunked out a little bit, and he had to go to summer school out at Leonard. And my dad bought a bicycle for him to ride. Well, that bicycle come down to my second brother John. He got it. Well, the time I got it, about 15 years later, there wasn't a whole lot of bicycle left, but that's what I ended up with. But next door to the Western Auto was Stalls, Doc Stall's family. You
Hmm.
remember Doc Stall? His family had the grocery store there, and a lot of folks from the country would come and they get their big bags of flour and cornmeal and stuff. Come in on a Saturday. That was a big day in Rector
Oh
Saturday,
yeah.
boy. If you, like I said, if you didn't get to town early, you wouldn't get a parking place. But on the other side of the grocery store was Robert Gordon's pool hall.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep, Robert
Yeah.
Gordon had a pool hall there. And next to that would be Thompson's Variety Store.
Mhm.
This was before they closed that and moved over on Front Street. And then next to them was Mr. Phillips had the drugstore. And I was into music big time. I loved my music. And one day I seen in the window there, he had a little portable radio with a strap on it you could hang around your neck. Well, I bought that radio so I could have my music wherever I went. Still got it in there and
Really?
in the closet.
Wow.
And of course, after Mr. Phillips drugstore, there wasn't any barber shop there. That came along later. But that big open lot was the Joseph Wolf Company. It was a huge clothing store when I was growing up, and they had a little tricky thing in the store. The employees, when somebody come in and bought something, they'd put the money in the bill in a little container, and it went up. They had a little upstairs room there, and that went up into the office, and the people made the change and everything and sent it back down. So the employees didn't get to make change or nothing in that old store.
Hmm.
And I guess it was long about early 50s when that caught fire. After, before it burned, the Beardens owned it. I guess you remember.
I think I was like 4 when that
You could
burned.
very well.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, the Whiteway Barbershop had a nice little shoe sign stand, and Jackie Gatewood. There was another boy earlier than Jackie that shined shoes there. He had a little bicycle he set out there in the front. I can't remember his name, but he was older than me. But Jackie got involved when that building was burning. He got over there trying to help the fire department and got smoke inhalation. And he couldn't shine shoes anymore, so I took over shining shoes there at the White Way. But now going back to when I was just a little, I got a picture up here in the thing when I was about 5 years old, I had the longest, prettiest curly hair you ever seen. I think my mama wanted to raise me as a girl, but it didn't work out. Anyway, you go in the White Way Barbershop, they had 3 chairs. Mr. Frank Cooper was on the right, Brian McCready in the center. If you later on in the 50s, if you wanted a flat top haircut, Brian McCready was the man. And then Floyd Wynn was the third chair. And that's where I ended up when I was just before I was getting ready to go to school. They took me in. They had a little board they set up on the arm of the chairs, padded chair, where you could get up there high enough for the barber to reach little boys. Well, it took 2 of them to hold me down when that thing come on, that scared the dickens out of me, and they started cutting my hair off and made a boy out of me. And Mr. Floyd Wynn, uh, his daughter, Helen Corcoran, she lived next door here for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and her daughter, Camellia, lived down here on the corner in this white house there on the Donaldson and Main. And after her mother passed away, we loved that little girl. We talked her into coming up here and moving in over here. And I don't guess it made any difference when we lived in Michigan and I worked for General Motors. Whoever lived next door to us, we looked after them if they were older people. And same with Helen. As she got older over here, we looked after her. And then Camellia moved in, and she worked at a flower shop down in Paragould, that big flower business out on 412. Anyway, sure, she loved chocolate pie. Shirley'd make her a chocolate pie. We had the key to the house. We'd go over there and put that pie on the table. And
That's a real neighbor.
and after she passed away, Cindy, her younger sister, moved in over there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, coming on through town, I cannot remember when they built the bank where it's at. I think the old bank was that white building on the corner over there, where some people have a business in there now. And Mr. Davis had a jewelry in. Now
Yeah,
some of the
he lived right down here.
right down next on the other side of Nolan's house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the buildings in town, I can go down to the hotel, big hotel on the corner. If you go down there today, the road kind of curves around a little bit. That building stuck way out there. And Mr. Jonah Keller run that hotel. I love that old railroad depot. That was beautiful. I wish they had never torn that down.
You know, I don't know what part of it is, but they moved part of it over there.
Down there,
Yeah.
it's down there behind where Clayton Harden had the gin on that
Mm-hmm.
back
Yeah.
lot. But anyway, the train would stop there. Passenger train would stop there, and people come from St. Louis or whatever, they would get off the train and go over there and stay in the hotel. Had a nice restaurant in the bottom there. A little man named Ober Harper. He was the banker in Rector, kind of a little seedy guy. He lived up there on 3rd Street in a big house there, just past the Brewers. The house is still there. And I remember going in there in the restaurant there in the hotel, and he took his supper there every night. If they had in the old Western movies, if they had a banker in one of the movies, he would have made the banker because he was just exactly like that. But anyway, on this side of the hotel was Mr. Everett Fry's Palace Theater. His theater had a balcony in it. So you could go up there and throw stuff down on people. Now, I didn't go there too much because I guess Tom Ford's Theater was the place to be. Next to that was
So how long do you think that theater was open?
it was open quite a few years. I I would imagine it was open probably as long as anything in town.
Really?
And next to the theater was a man named Forrest Lashley, had a dry cleaning business.
I bought his house.
Okay, now if you remember that building, that was like it was like the old pool hall up on North Main Street. It had a right hand door and it had a left hand door going in. Right hand door took you down into the dry cleaning business. The right hand door had a little office there, and there was a guy had a jewelry store there. I can't remember his name, but you could get your watch fixed or whatever you need done. And
I'd never heard that story. That's a
and
new one.
on
Yeah.
past that was the original post office, which Donald McClooney was the postmaster. And I remember going in there as a little boy. It was a narrow building, and down one side they had the places where people could rent boxes,
Mhm.
and on past that was a kind of a later on it was a place where people could do their laundry. Next to that, Claude Tidwell. You remember Claude Tidwell?
Mhm.
He had his original grocery store was down on 7th Street and Phillips, right on the corner there by the ditch. And he sold that to a Mr. Ward, his wife, and he moved his grocery store up to town in that building, which at one time, I don't know, it could have very well been a grocery store. And a little guy named Alvin Arnold was the meat. He was the butcher. And now I thought, now that guy is the funniest name, Alvin Arnold.
Uh,
But then next door to that was, we probably wasn't supposed to go in there that much because it was still sold beer in there. And a man named Tab Milburn had that building. And Tab had a sort of a little restaurant like, and he sold beer.
Now, if you're looking down the alley
Yeah.
from the park, would it be on the right or left
Yeah.
hand side?
Is
So
on the right hand side.
okay, so where
It
where the
in fact
dime store was?
Thompson
Yeah,
moved a variety store there later on.
is that right?
Um,
So that was a
that alley, if you notice there's alleys. There's three different alleys. There's that alley, and that service the buildings on North Main Street. Then there's an alley behind where Clayton Harden had his store there. There's alley that goes from 4th Street up to 3rd Street. And then there's the alley that goes behind the rest of the buildings on Main Street, where by Clopton's office goes through there. All that was to service those buildings there because
Mhm.
couldn't always find a parking place in front. But anyway, right next to that alley after you left Tab Milburn, and I remember Tab Milburn had a picture up on the above the cabinet there and behind the bar. He had a picture of a man named Skeets McDonald.
Yeah.
Did you know Skeets?
I didn't know him, but
He was a
I'm a
country music singer.
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
When we bought this house, Zeb and Ida Wagner owned it. Ida was Skeets' sister, and
Right.
there was some. I've still got their RCA Victor phonograph console in there,
Uh-huh.
and there was some records from Skeets in there. If you ever go to Piggott, when you get up there Greenway, the going into town, there's the big sign there, "Welcome to
Mhm.
Greenway." Skeets' pictures on that.
Yeah, he went to school at Greenway,
Yeah, they were born up there, I think.
but you know his albums uh, say that he was from Rector, and I don't know what I know that he traded. They did business here in Rector. I know that his dad bought groceries here in Rector, but they lived between here and Greenway,
Yeah.
and so both towns claim him.
Now
Uh,
Skeets is buried up there at Mitchell. I
right.
can, and I've been up to his cemetery stone a lot.
Hmm.
When I was
Got a
growing up,
guitar on the
yeah,
stone. Yeah.
yeah. When I was growing up, of course, uh, my dad had a garage down there, and that street Hickman run next to,
Hmm.
and going up Hickman Street, about there was about four houses on Hickman Street, and Mr. McDonald, Skeets' dad, lived in one of those houses, and I'd see him a lot. He wore overalls and a big black John B. Stetson hat. I imagine Skeets bought him
I'm
that hat
sure.
probably.
Yeah.